Nearly 50 years after Elvis Presley's death, rumors are swirling about opening his tomb. But why would they do that? And what are they going to find inside?
Elvis Presley died today. He was 42. Apparently it was a heart attack. He was found at his home in Memphis, not breathing.
Questions are rising, and the mystery of his life is deepening in the process. So let's take a look at it from the start. Early life. It's the break of dawn on January 8, 1935, in Tupelo, Mississippi, and in a cozy two-room house, Gladys Presley, with her husband Vernon and his brother's help, is about to become a mom to twin boys. The first little boy, Jesse Garin, is sadly stillborn, but then comes Elvis Aaron kicking and screaming into the world, healthy as can be. However, due to his twin brother's death, Elvis ended up being their one and only boy, but he was in a home full of love. This was the start of his childhood, which was all about family. Parents, grandparents, the whole clan, all huddled together in Tupelo. Funds were short. There was plenty of love to go around, and this was especially true with Elvis's parents, Vernon and Gladys, who were devoted to providing Elvis with the best possible life. Their frequent relocations didn't dampen their commitment to creating a stable home environment because home is where the heart is anyway. For Elvis, though, the joy in his heart came from both the music and the preaching at the Assembly of God Church. Not only that, but he also took pleasure in listening to a variety of musical genres, including gospel tunes, blues from his neighbors, and country music on the radio. Fast forward to October 3rd, 1945, and a 10-year-old Elvis is about to get a taste of the spotlight. The story goes that he hopped on a chair to reach the mic at the Mississippi-Alabama Fair and Dairy Show Talent Contest in Tupelo, where he sang Old Shep. And guess what? He landed 5th place, walking away with a handful of fair ride tickets. Not bad for his first time singing for more than just family and friends. However, this was just the beginning, as 2 years later in 1947, Elvis had his heart set on a bike, but it's just not in the cards, money-wise. So Gladys, being the sweet mom she is, nudges him towards a guitar from Tupelo Hardware Company, which was only $13 but was priceless to Elvis. He put this guitar to good use when he gave his classmates at Milam Junior High a farewell they won't forget, strumming Leaf on a Tree. Why was he giving them a farewell song? It was time for a big move, with the Presleys tying everything they owned to their old Plymouth and heading to Memphis, Tennessee, chasing that dream of a better life. The good news is that they weren't alone. Pretty soon, the whole Presley and Smith family would be up and moving, looking for their slice of the American dream. However, what they got wasn't a dream, because from 1948 to 1953, Elvis and his family were residents of public housing or affordable homes in the economically challenged areas of North Memphis. The struggle was real, with Vernon and Gladys constantly switching jobs while Elvis attended L.C. Humes High School. To help out, Elvis took on various jobs to support himself and his parents. Despite the tough times, the Presley-Smith family held on tight, finding solace in their faith and regularly congregating at the Assembly of God Church. Meanwhile, teenage Elvis had his own coping mechanism with guitar, singing, and his own unique style, where he would shop for clothes on Beale Street and soak in the sounds of the local black blues and gospel music. He even became a staple at the downtown all-night gospel sings, where everyone got to see his long hair and sideburns, which made him stand out, making him a friendly outlier among his peers. It wasn't just church, though. During his time at Humes High, Elvis bravely performed with his guitar at a student talent show. To his surprise, he received the loudest applause and won the contest, which led to an encore performance and also a great boost to his morale. However, this joyous period was coming to an end, as by the time 1953 rolled around, Elvis had graduated from Humes High School. Afterward, he immediately started working at Parker Machinist's shop, and that summer, he visited the Memphis Recording Service, also known as the Sun label. Over there, he recorded a demo of My Happiness and That's When Your Heartaches Begin for about $4 as a birthday gift for his mom, Gladys. Around this time, a man named Sam Phillips, the founder of Sun Records, took notice of Elvis's talent, seeing him as a good ballad singer, which marked the start of Elvis's music career. The start of his music career. By 1955, Elvis's career began to take off as he attracted fans with his distinctive musical style, his energetic hip movements on stage, and his handsome appearance. In the same year, Elvis Presley sealed a contract with Radio Corporation of America Records, a deal orchestrated by his manager, Colonel Tom Parker. By this point, Elvis was making waves, landing his first #1 single with Heartbreak Hotel. His debut album Elvis Presley topped the charts, and he even bagged a movie deal with Paramount Pictures, all in the span of 1956. Furthermore, despite some raised eyebrows over his risque dance moves, he became a favored guest on numerous television variety shows. He made his network television debut on The Stage Show, produced by Jackie Gleason and featuring Tommy and Jimmy Dorsey, which aired on Columbia Broadcasting System. He performed on the show 5 additional times, gradually gaining national attention, but his last performance on the show was on March 24, 1956. During this period, he continued to travel and make personal appearances, including his contracted performances on the Louisiana Hayride. Later on in the same year, though, as Heartbreak Hotel was getting super popular, Elvis's 5th and last song for Sun Records, I Forgot to Remember to Forget with Mystery Train on the other side, became #1 on the country music charts, his first big hit ever. A few months later, Radio Corporation of America put out Elvis Presley, his first album with all his early songs. It quickly became super popular and stayed at #1 on the pop album charts for 10 whole weeks, being the first of Elvis's to make over $1 million and winning him his first Gold Album Award. Then, 2 days later, Elvis went to Los Angeles to do a 2-day screen test at Paramount Studios in Hollywood, where he lip-synced to Blue Suede Shoes and acted out a scene from the movie The Rainmaker, which hadn't been made yet. Suffice it to say that Elvis was very busy during these days. He even made a splash on the Milton Berle Show on National Broadcasting Company, which was uniquely broadcast from the United States ship Hancock aircraft carrier. This wasn't the end, though, as Elvis would get even busier after he penned a deal for a single movie with Hal Wallace and Paramount Pictures, which also included the option for an additional 6 films. A few days later, and from April to May 1956, Elvis's act at the New Frontier Hotel in Las Vegas didn't quite hit the mark with the adult gamblers, a stark contrast to the usual fan frenzy he incited. Despite this, his single Heartbreak Hotel and his album Elvis Presley soared to #1 on the Billboard pop charts. As Elvis continued touring and making personal appearances, his fame skyrocketed. His performances were so electrifying that sometimes they had to be cut short when fans overwhelmed the stage. Then, in June, Elvis graced the Milton Berle Show again, this time from the usual studio setting, accompanied by the Jordanaires, Scotty, Bill, and DJ. His rendition of Hound Dog was provocatively playful, setting the younger crowd on fire while earning disapproval from some adults and the press. Despite being one of his most debated acts, it only amplified his fame. As Elvis kept touring and releasing new records, his sensual dance style and rhythm and blues-inspired sound drew criticism from some conservative and religious circles, yet he remained a hit with the youth. This criticism didn't stop him, though, as he showed up on The Steve Allen Show on National Broadcasting Company. Over there, he sang a relaxing rendition of Hound Dog with a twist. To make it funny, Allen dressed Elvis in a fancy white tie and tails, and had him sing to a basset hound, poking fun at the controversy from his previous television appearance. Although Elvis went along with the gag, he wasn't thrilled about it. But that didn't stop him from joining in a cowboy comedy sketch with Allen, Imogene Coca, and Andy Griffith. Despite ongoing criticism, Elvis's popularity soared, prompting Ed Sullivan to book him for 3 shows for an unprecedented $50,000, despite earlier vows never to feature him. The next day, the Jordanaires, a renowned gospel and country backing group, teamed up with Elvis in the recording studio for his 4th Radio Corporation of America session and started touring with him. They would also join him in several movies and remain his primary backing group well into the late 60s. Then, by August of 1956, Elvis began filming his debut movie, initially titled The Reno Brothers, but it was later renamed Love Me Tender to take advantage of the anticipated success of the soundtrack's single. While working on this movie, Elvis made his first of 3 appearances on The Ed Sullivan Show, which was the leading television program at the time. His appearance drew a record-breaking 80% of the national television audience, even though Sullivan had to be replaced by Charles Laughton for the show due to a car accident. If you thought raking in 80% of the national television audience was impressive, then how about the start of Elvis Presley Day? On September 26, 1956, Tupelo, Mississippi proclaimed that this day would now be known as Elvis Presley Day. Knowing the importance of the occasion, the King's family was there as he went to his hometown as a big-time celebrity. He performed 2 gigs at the Mississippi-Alabama Fair and Dairy Show, the same spot he played when he was just a kid. This time, though, it was wild, with a group of National Guardsmen keeping the excited fans in check. By now, Elvis Mania was in full swing, with all sorts of merchandise popping up everywhere. We're talking about a whole lineup of stuff with his face on it. Hats, tees, jeans, you name it. Elvis and his manager, the Colonel, were really up to something new in the celebrity merchandise game, and this was just the start of a never-ending Elvis craze which went even crazier with his movie. Come November 15th, and Elvis is lighting up the big screen with his first movie, Love Me Tender, over at the Paramount Theater in New York City. The flick was a hit, and the critics didn't hate his acting either. The movie was set in the Old South during the Civil War, where Elvis wasn't just acting, he was singing tunes too. Wrapping up the year, the Wall Street Journal's front page on December 31st mentions how Elvis made a whopping $22 million just from merchandise sales, which goes to show how the year of 1956 was a real game changer for Elvis, taking him from local hero to global superstar. It was the year Elvis merch took off. He kicked off his movie star gig, smashed record sales, made history on TV, and had fans going nuts at his shows. By now, Elvis Presley had emerged as the quintessential icon of America's growing youth culture and a figure of considerable debate within society. His innovative fusion of diverse musical genres, coupled with his distinctive charisma and talent, sparked a transformative wave in music, popular culture, and the societal norms of America. The impact was profound, signaling an irreversible shift for both Elvis Presley and the world at large. The next year, he wouldn't be slowing down, and on January 6, 1957, Elvis made his third and concluding performance on The Ed Sullivan Show, notably broadcasted with the camera framing him solely from the waist up. This peculiar form of censorship, introduced after his numerous television appearances the previous year, was especially ironic during his rendition of the gospel hymn Peace in the Valley, one of 5 songs he performed that day. Ed Sullivan, a towering figure in television, alleviated some of the controversy by praising Elvis on stage, assuring the audience and the millions watching at home of Elvis's upstanding character and the pleasure of having him on the show. Interestingly, though, Elvis was wrapped up in some controversy around this time. His popularity had reached such heights that the New York Times reported on the frenzy for Presley records in the Soviet Union, despite their unavailability through official channels. The report detailed how bootleg recordings, ingeniously crafted onto discarded X-ray plates, were being openly sold in Leningrad's black market for 50 rubles each, a considerable sum for the era, as that roughly translates to $130 today. In the same year, Elvis's Christmas album was a massive hit, topping the charts for a whole month and eventually selling a whopping 20 million copies, and let's not forget Jailhouse Rock, the chart-topping single from his movie. Rolling Stone even gave it a shout-out in 2021, placing it at number 216 on their list of best songs of all time. Elvis had many other amazing hits too, like Blue Suede Shoes and Can't Help Falling in Love, and who could ignore All Shook Up, Let Me Be Your Teddy Bear, and the soul-stirring Are You Lonesome Tonight? This joy wouldn't last forever, though, as by November of 1957, Elvis was rocking out in Hawaii, which, little did we know, would be his last gig before he put on his army boots. As the year wrapped up, Elvis and his family were decorating the halls at Graceland for their first Christmas at home. But amidst the festive spirit, he got his draft notice, something which he had been expecting for a while. Military and marriage. Despite being drafted into the United States Army, Presley's career trajectory remained on an upward climb. His military chapter commenced with his induction at the Memphis Draft Board, followed by the iconic transformation with his GI haircut at Fort Chaffee, Arkansas. Come March 1958, Elvis reported to Fort Hood, Texas, for 6 months of basic training. It was during his first leave from here that he managed to squeeze in a recording session, which would be his last until 1960. This session produced the hit, A Big Hunk of Love, and while it may have been a joyful event for him, this too wouldn't last long. In a turn of events tinged with sorrow just before his deployment to Europe, Elvis's mother, Gladys, fell gravely ill. She was rushed back to Memphis to battle acute hepatitis in the hospital, and Elvis was granted emergency leave, which he used to hurry back to Memphis, arriving on the afternoon of August 12th to be by her side. Elvis spent time with his mom during her last days, staying by her side through the night. But after heading back to Graceland for some rest, he received the heartbreaking news of her passing on August 14th at the age of 46. Her body was laid to rest at Graceland that same afternoon, and a grief-stricken Elvis had to pull himself together to return to his duties. Over in Germany, Elvis found a silver lining when he crossed paths with Priscilla Beaulieu, a young teen who had just moved there. Priscilla's family, led by her dad, Captain Joseph Beaulieu, had relocated from Texas to the Wiesbaden Air Force Base. Priscilla, who had lost her biological father in a plane crash as a baby, was about to start a new chapter in her life with Elvis. A mutual friend got Priscilla an invite to a party at Elvis's place, and that's where their love story began. The two fell in love and ended up tying the knot several years later in 1967 in Las Vegas. While serving in the Army, Elvis earned his stripes as a sergeant, but his time in uniform came to a close on March 2, 1960. He jetted back to New Jersey, faced the press, and by March 5th, he was officially out of active duty. He made his way to Memphis, where fans and media were buzzing about his return. On March 8th, he held a press conference right at Graceland, in his dad's office. Despite being a huge star, Elvis served like any other soldier, without any special treatment. Those 2 years away were a time for growth, even though he couldn't shake off the worry that his absence might have hurt his career. The 60s and 70s. Having left the military in 1960, Elvis jumped right back into the spotlight. His tunes from GI Blues were all over the charts, and he kept the hits coming with movies like Blue Hawaii and Viva Las Vegas. Sure, not every movie was a smash hit, but they made money, and the people loved the soundtracks. Fast forward to the late 60s, and it seemed like Elvis's star power in the movies was dimming, but he wasn't down for long. He stormed back with the 1968 comeback special on television, reminding everyone why he's the king. He was all charm and talent, singing and strumming his guitar like only he could. Life was looking up for Elvis around then, too. He and Priscilla had tied the knot, and soon after, they were celebrating the birth of their daughter, Lisa Marie, in 1968. But the good times didn't last forever. The 70s came around, and with it came infidelity from both Elvis and Priscilla. One thing led to another, and their marriage was in shambles, leading to them splitting up in 1973 with Priscilla taking care of Lisa Marie. Elvis was fighting some demons, too. His health was taking a hit because of his habit of pills. The guy who once had everyone swooning over his slim figure was now dealing with weight issues. It all caught up with him in the fall of 1973, landing him in the hospital. Still, the man was a legend on stage with his Vegas shows, and his tours being filled to the brim with fans. He did his last show in June 1977 in Indy. After that, he headed back to Graceland, thinking about the next tour. His time at Graceland would be interrupted, though, as the unthinkable happened. Death. On August 16, 1977, the world lost Elvis. He died at the age of just 42, with the culprit being the prescription drugs he was taking, resulting in heart failure that took him away from us, way too soon. After his death, he was buried on the grounds of Graceland, resting beside the graves of his mother, father, and grandmother, Minnie May Hood Presley. The news of Presley's demise cast a shadow of sorrow across many hearts. Remarkably, The florist's Trans-World Delivery flower delivery service recorded an unprecedented surge in orders, with over 3,100 floral tributes requested on the day of his passing, a record for a single day in the United States. Then came the time of his funeral on August 18th, where an estimated 18,000 individuals, armed with signs, flowers, and keepsakes, arrived at Elvis Presley Boulevard in Memphis, all eager for a view of his funeral procession. This procession included a white Cadillac hearse carrying Presley's rose-covered casket to its destination. Approximately 200 relatives gathered for a private memorial at Graceland, joined by Hollywood icons such as John Wayne, Burt Reynolds, Anne Margaret, and Caroline Kennedy. While his funeral was peaceful, and his death would certainly mark the end of his story, Elvis Presley and his family would still have to face more mysteries and trouble regarding the king of rock and roll, Elvis Presley's tomb controversy. The abrupt death of Elvis Presley on August 16, 1977, sent shockwaves through the music realm and left countless admirers in mourning. However, people weren't ready to say goodbye to the legend, as just 9 days after his burial, 3 men attempted to rob his grave. The trio, identified as Raymond Green, Eugene Nelson, and Ronnie Adkins, were discovered loitering near Presley's final resting place. It was observed, however, that they were ill-equipped for a break-in, as according to a report, the group didn't have enough explosives. An employee of the cemetery informed the authorities that the men seemed to intend to use dynamite to force entry into the mausoleum. The police confirmed the seizure of some explosives, although the quantity was deemed insufficient for their plan. Afterward, Ronnie Adkins became an informant against his accomplices, but was later found to be untrustworthy following an arrest for fraud, leading to the dismissal of the charges. Yet this wasn't the end of this story. Decades after this foiled scheme, Ronnie Adkins revealed that the plot might have been orchestrated by a dishonest law enforcement officer, potentially under the influence of Elvis Presley's family. The Presley family wanted to lay the king to rest at Graceland, but the property was not sanctioned for burials. So in essence, Adkins implied that Sheriff Billy Talley might have conspired with the Presley family in the staged theft, where the motive was to show a need for heightened security, thereby convincing the city of Memphis to approve Graceland as a burial site. Funnily enough, though, even this incident wasn't the end of the news surrounding Elvis's tomb. Over the years, whispers have emerged, suggesting that the tomb of the iconic Elvis Presley might be unveiled, igniting a whirlwind of speculation among fans and theorists. The start of this rumor, though, is as mysterious as the king himself, having grown into a narrative as captivating as the man at its heart. It began with online forum theories that Presley's family might unveil the secrets of the grave. The prospect of gaining insight into the private life of such a celebrated figure has sent waves of eager anticipation through the community of Elvis enthusiasts. The initial source of the rumors remains unknown, yet the idea quickly spread, fanning the flames of curiosity. Along with such theories, there are those who suggest that Elvis faked his own death, and they point to a few pieces of evidence to support this claim. The first piece of evidence is that his tombstone misspelled his middle name as Aaron with an extra A instead of Aaron. People think it's all part of a conspiracy because the real Elvis is still out there. The debunkers, though, say Elvis himself switched the spelling of his middle name later on. The second piece of evidence is that there have been inconsistencies in the Presley family's public statements. For example, during a 2005 interview with Oprah, Priscilla Presley was reminiscing about how Elvis pampered their daughter, Lisa Marie. Skeptics interpret a moment in the interview as a slip, believing Priscilla referred to her husband in the present tense as if he was still alive, before quickly correcting herself afterward. Additionally, skeptics mention a 2003 interview where Lisa Marie seemed to sidestep Larry King's inquiry about whether she senses any form of communication with her father. Along with all these slip-ups, the notion that Elvis may still be alive has taken root among some. Elvis Presley, sightings after death. Following Elvis's burial, a faction of skeptics began to entertain the possibility that he might have planned his own disappearance. Despite official confirmations of his death by medical professionals, These individuals remain convinced that the iconic singer staged his demise to escape the public eye. For over 40 years, there have been numerous alleged sightings of Elvis across North America. In 1989, a group of Elvis aficionados formed the Elvis Sighting Society to document these occurrences. There's even a claim that he made a cameo in the 1990 hit movie Home Alone as a bearded man in a turtleneck, spotted in the background of an airport scene. Paranormal investigator Ben Radford had a pretty logical take on the Elvis sighting saga. He wondered why Elvis would fake his own death and then just casually show up in a movie, and how could nobody on set recognize one of the most famous personalities in the world? He was then told to disprove the fact that it was Elvis by finding the extra. However, Radford pointed out that it's on the claim makers to prove their point. Director Chris Columbus even chimed in, saying he would have definitely noticed if Elvis was walking around on set. Then there's Kenny Biddle, who took up the challenge to figure out who the mystery extra really was. Turns out it was a man named Gary Richard Grott, who passed away in 2016. Grott's son confirmed that his father was the extra in Home Alone and was friends with Columbus, which is why he got to be in several of his movies. That's not the end of this saga, though. Back in 1988, a Nashville radio station went all out with a wild contest, offering $1 million to anyone who could bring Elvis into their studio for a chat. They were hoping this would either get Elvis to show up or finally end all the rumors about him still being around. This Elvis hunt even made it into a video game called Les Manly in Search for the King in 1990, where players tried to track down the king for $1 million reward. Either way, whether he is still lurking around in private or is still resting in his grave, the life of Elvis Presley is unforgettable. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.